had a feeling Chris was going to mention that because I recently posted a blog about why do we really need principals. And everywhere I go, I bump into a principal that gives me some heat about that, as well they should. You know, I spent the last 2 days sitting in a chair, so it just feels good to kind of stand up a little bit. And I hope to share with you a very specific example of something that I did in my school that I cannot take credit for. I just had the foresight to write about it and kind of, I don't know if it went viral, but it kind of certainly went global with an idea that we called Innovation Day. So to get things started, I just kind of want to start with, and they were giving me a hard time because I actually use realistic, like PowerPoint, not a keynote. This is an actual PowerPoint that I never do. Is what do we know about the way kids learn? And there's a lot of theory and a lot of pedagogy, but if you're a parent, you know how kids learn. It's unfiltered. They drink from the hose out back. They're constantly asking questions. They want to know, and there's no boxes, there's no filters, there's no standards, there's no curriculum. It's just kids being kids. And if you have kids, you understand this. And one of the primary modes they do this, and this is a picture of my son at one of our favorite spots, which is the dolphin tank at Brookfield Zoo. And he wants to reach out and touch the dolphin, and he wants to ask me a million questions. And my oldest son, you know, a lot of kids like to read The Cat in the Hat and those fiction short stories or picture books, which are great, despite what the Common Core may want to tell us. But my oldest loves nonfiction. And his obsession lately, I was at the ASCD conference and got to hear Reed Timmer speak. Some of you might have heard him, the storm chaser. And so my son is now obsessed with storms. And he's very curious. He'll ask me to see on Twitter, did Reed say something? Is there a tornado somewhere? It's in Oklahoma. Is that close to us? We look at a map. So he's constantly asking these questions. And where does that come from? It's curiosity. And unfortunately, he's now in kindergarten. I don't say that unfortunately. But you start to see some of those things go away because we start filtering our kids down these tracks, down these pathways, and we try to justify it with saying things like curriculum and standardization, which I don't have enough time to go into my thoughts on that right now. The second way in which I find that kids are most, really what the very basis of a child is creativity. And this is something that is evident in everything a kid does. This is my son. You give him a box of chalk and a patio, and you kind of have a work of art. This is not something we have to teach kids. This is something that they inherently have. Now, there are varying levels. I'm not going to say that some kids are the most creative. I certainly wouldn't have thought up something like that myself. My older brother is a fantastic artist. I struggle to draw stick people. But unfortunately, when we get to school, we take that creativity and that curiosity and we try to replace it with number 2 pencils, bubble sheets, and the like. And that's unfortunate. And when we do allow kids to be creative, what is our obsession? We try to attach a number to it. We try to grade it. We try to assess it. Because for some reason in this country, we are obsessed with numbers. Everything a child does and everything now a teacher does, we want to attach a number to it. There are some goods to that, but I would by and large say there's a lot of negativity to it because as soon as you start adding numbers, what do you start doing? You start ranking. As soon as you start ranking, you have winners, and therefore you have losers. And I have a problem with that. So one of the problems that I came across was we complain about these boxes, we complain about standardized testing, we complain about all these things, when we actually have an opportunity to do some things within those boxes and with those boxes. And I am the first to tell you I complain about a lot of things. And I often have to step back and people like Chris, you know, say, hey, let's talk about this. And what can we do within these boxes that we all complain about being? There's been a lot of ranting and raving in the blogosphere on this stage this last 2 days. So what are we going to do about it? What are some real things that we can do to make school better? And let's not even try to define what that means. So there was a birth of an idea, and it really came through Twitter. And kind of around about through YouTube. Some of you might be familiar with a guy by the name of Daniel Pink. And some people love him, some people hate him. He is a business-minded author. And he wrote a book called Drive, in which he talked a little bit about what motivates humans. Not what motivates kids, not what motivates but just humans. And I think we try to distinguish between students and adults in terms of motivation, but we're people. We're human beings. We're motivated by the same thing. And he talked a little about the FedEx model and the Google model of the 20% time where you give those employees a certain amount of time to do whatever they want, be innovative, be creative, think outside the box, and then at the end of that time kind of share what you've come up with. And we had a teacher in my building. We had watched actually the RSA Animate of Daniel Pink's Drive. If you haven't seen it on YouTube, it's fantastic because if you don't want to read the entire book, it's a great way to get the message. But we had a teacher, Matt Langus was his name, and I always give him credit for it because he was the one that started it. He, on his team, because we're a middle school, and he had a team of 100 students, they started something called Innovation Day. Okay? And then we took the idea, our 6th grade team, the next year and did it with an entire grade level of 300 kids. So I'll back up and explain what Innovation Day is. And that just looks terrible, doesn't it? The end slid down. It's the PowerPoint. See, I shouldn't have used the PowerPoint. So Innovation Day, we introduced it to the kids with saying, hey, you guys are going to have this day, and on this day you're going to learn about whatever you want. Use whatever tools and resources we have available to us at school or that you bring in from home, and do whatever you want for an entire day. The only restriction is at the end of the day, you have to share what you produced, what you created. And if you teach middle school, you were probably aware that you were met with some very unusual stares, faces, and some slow cricket chirping in the back of the room. They were very confused. So we started giving them some examples. Well, if you're passionate about architecture, maybe you want to build a model that day. If you're passionate about art, maybe you create a work of art during your day. And then the light bulb starts to go on, it starts to get a little further about. So the bottom line premise behind all this is some belief that I had and a lot of the teachers in my building that kids are motivated by choice. As soon as you tell a kid you have to do it this way, even if they like doing it that way, they're going to have an instant rebellion to it because you told them to do it that way. But as soon as you institute this idea of choice, kids start thinking, okay, I have some investment in this, I have a choice in what I'm doing, so if somebody's going to get mad at what I'm doing, I'm really just going to get mad at myself. And so we truly believed in the power of choice. And so just a few examples here. This is a young lady who wanted to do art. She wanted to make a painting. So she spent her entire day doing a painting. At the end of the day, she shared it. Was incredibly proud of that. Okay? Another example, these two young men went the tech route. The young man in the front, wanted to write a computer program for a little video game. I have no idea how he did it. I don't know what he did. But at the end of the day, he shared what he did. And the rest of the kids were like, oh, that's pretty cool. I never thought of that. I was kind of going, that's pretty cool. And then the guy in the back here, you can see the green bars on his iPad there. He was composing some music. And it kind of like a techno disco type of thing. And he shared that. And probably one of my favorite was, we've done this for 2 years, it was my first year. This young man, much to the, we separate all the kids into rooms. We had a room for all the kids doing art. We call that the high room because of the paint fumes. We had a room that was just musical instruments. And whoever drew the short straw, my math teacher that year, walked out needing an entire bottle of Advil because we had drummers, we had guitarists, we had a trombone player. And this young man spent an entire day writing a solo for his guitar. And at the end of the day, he's played his guitar in front of 300 of his peers. Think about the power of that. And I remember standing in the back of this room, one of those team rooms that opens up, the walls move and everything. I remember standing in the back and I took this picture. And when he was done, the standing ovation he got, I kind of got goosebumps even just remembering that moment. And he was a rock god for the rest of the day and to the rest of the year. And I think, unfortunately, still thinks he is. But it was powerful because he got to choose what he wanted. There was no class in our school that was going to allow him to write his own song and perform his own original work. That's kind of sad. But it was powerful that we were able to allow him to do that. And that's what Innovation Day was all about. Okay? Now, this is one of my favorite quotes that came out of it. I had this sweet young lady, after the first year we did it, Nicole, and she had spent her entire day writing a short story. I don't even remember what the story was about, but she was enthused about it, and I couldn't think of just sitting in a chair writing for 7 hours, which is essentially what she had done. She went to lunch and wanted to come back early to finish her story. Very often we have that happen in junior high. And she said, Mr. Stumpenhorst, can we do this tomorrow? And I'm looking at my watch going, I'm fairly certain it's Friday and tomorrow is Saturday. And I tell her this, kind of chuckling. She said, I would come back tomorrow to do this. Now, again, I go back to junior high teacher. I hear this phrase, well, I've been teaching 9 years, one time. One time does a kid ever say, I want to come back on a Saturday to do something. And I'm not saying that we need to create environments where kids want to come back every day because it's fun and exciting, but they're actually involved in what they're doing and they want to come back on a day they're not supposed to be there to do something. We might be onto something here. And we truly felt that way. Now, another horribly misdone here slide. Challenges, other than my slides here on the PowerPoint, and the guys backstage are giggling here. We did have some frustration. When I initially proposed this to my team, I had some teachers that were not interested in doing it. And due to the peer pressure of myself and other teachers that thought this was a great idea, they went along with it. And I even have some teachers that still, after the fact, weren't all together with it. And some reasons. One example was we believed that we shouldn't grade anything the kids did that day. That would lose the value and the motivation of it. because how am I going to grade that kid's guitar solo? How can I attach a number to that? I don't think that's fair to him. And it's sad that a teacher friend of mine that I met online through Twitter, meeting online sounds bad, meeting on Twitter sounds legit, right? And she teaches up in Wisconsin, and I don't want to sell her out because maybe her peers in the audience, but she did an innovation day in an elementary, and one of her peers at the end of the day took all of his or her class's projects and graded them. And this particular teacher sent me a direct message and said just how devastated she was that this teacher felt the need. They could not handle a kid working an entire day and them not attaching a number or a letter or a percentage to it. And I find that sad. You know, I can tell you, and this isn't from a point of arrogance, within about the first 2 weeks of class, who gets it and who doesn't, and who's going to get it the rest of the year. And then I can spend my time focusing on those kids that are struggling. I don't need to grade every single thing a kid does. In fact, I don't believe in grades in general, but we're not going to get into that today. And so what this day really was about was, and I reflect very often, I know some of the people in the audience think about your own children. And here's my son at the Brookfield Zoo again. You can sense a theme there. We go there a lot. And they have this lovely little exhibit where you can pretend to be a veterinarian. And they have all these play animals. You can perform all these, as you can see, sophisticated medical procedures on. And I don't know that my son's going to grow up to be a vet. Certainly would be more profitable. But no, if he chooses to do that, that's great. But the point is, I don't want to not let him do that. I don't want school to get in the way of him wanting to do that and pursuing that. And I'm afraid that in some cases, when we look at standards and Common Core and all these things we have in place, there's some good to it. We have to guide kids, okay? But we can't tell them where they're going and how to get there. And so things like Innovation Day allowed children to step outside of that box and say, you know what, if I want to be a vet, I'm going to spend the day doing just that. And that really was where we went at it. When kids go, I don't know what I'm going to do for an entire day. One kid wanted to do an entire PowerPoint on socks. We redirected him, okay? But if they want to spend their day talking about what it is to be a veterinarian, then go ahead. And let's learn and let's move on from that. And I will tell you, a lot of the students and parents I talk about after that day and at the end of the school year, and the best time about this, we do this on a Friday after we've done 4 days of Illinois State standardized testing. So it's the complete hypocrisy of school. We have 4 days of bubble testing, and on the last day of that week, they get to do Innovation Day. And inevitably, every single kid comes up to me at the end of the year, and I say, what was your most memorable or favorite part about 6th grade? And a large majority of them tell me it's this day. And it's not because they got to goof off, because that's what you're thinking. Junior high kids, I'm sure they goofed off. They didn't. They owned their learning because they were invested, because guess what? I don't like what I'm doing. Whose fault is that? It's yours. And that really is what sold it for us. So in terms of next steps, in my last 1 minute and 4 seconds here, my goal for the coming year is to create, not just have this be a 1-day-a-year event. I'm looking at ways to do this once a week. And I'm also looking at taking these themes of choice and bringing into my everyday classroom. For example, the most simple example as a language arts teacher is we love to give book reports. I hate book reports. And I throw them out the door and I say, okay, if we're talking about theme, if we're talking about genre, prove to me you know what that thing means from the novel you've read in any way possible. You want to make a movie trailer? Do it. You want to make a movie poster? Do it. You want to make a claymation video that probably took you 4 hours to do, but you're more proud of that 45 seconds of end product than anything you've ever done in your life? Then do it. And that's really what it comes down to, is allowing kids to, yes, this was 1 day, Innovation Day, but why can't we have schools be like this on a more regular basis? Why do we have to dictate what kids have to do, what they have to learn, how they learn, and when they learn? And that's really what Innovation Day was for us. And if you're looking for more information, there's a lot of teachers around the U.S. and a couple overseas that have done this with great success. And I encourage you to try it, or at least take elements into your everyday practice. 0. Thank you.